Hi friends, it's Scarlett here. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, I post videos every week about subjects like tarot, paganism, and magic. And for today's video, we have a tarot video and we will be going over some of the hidden symbolism in the Spellcaster'S tarot. So this is one of my newer decks and I've really enjoyed working with this deck for various readings. And for this video, I really wanted to go a bit more in depth about some of that really rich and juicy symbolism in the major arcana cards. So let's get started. Okay, one of the first things I wanted to show you guys is the book that this deck comes with. So it comes with a pretty sizable guide here, which even includes color photographs, which is really nice. And one of my favorite things is it actually also includes magical uses for each of the cards. And if you're like me, who likes to not just use cards for readings, but also for spell work and rituals, this section is really useful. And one other minor note before we get into cards 0 through 10. And this minor note is about the minor arcana, so I'm not going to be going into too much detail on that today, but she does switch up the elemental correspondences a bit. So for the minors, you still have earth connected with pentacles and water connected with cups. However, for wands is traditionally associated with fire, but here she is associating it with air. And swords is traditionally connected with air, but here she is associating it with the element fire. So for someone who is used to wands being fire and swords being air, it takes a bit of adjustment when reading the minor arcana here. So getting into it, we have starting with the Fool card. And for this video, I'm not necessarily going to be talking about the meanings of each of the cards, and I do have other videos where you can learn more about the meanings of the cards. For the purpose of this video, I'm just going to be going into some of the really interesting symbolism in cards 0 through 10, because those who are familiar with tarot know that a huge part of it is understanding the symbols in each of the images. And these symbols come from a variety of sources, some from mythological stories, from different religions. You see a lot of Christian symbolism, Jewish symbolism, even you'll see a lot of runes in this deck. So I'll be going over some of the symbols that came to mind, and as I'm going through too, do please leave comments below if I missed anything or if you have anything else to add for these cards. So actually, before we get into the Fool, I'm just going to flip the cards over a bit and show you their backs. So here you have 4 animals represented, and the 4 animals are connected to the 4 suits. So you have the fish for cups, the squirrel for pentacles, the birds for wands, and then the dog for swords. And you'll actually see that in a lot of the minor arcana cards, the connecting animals. See, here's the bird, swords, here is the dog, here is the squirrel for pentacles, and then the fish is actually in the wine down below. So you actually get to see these animals represented throughout the different minor arcana cards. And another thing you'll notice is these symbols up here, which are representative of the seasons. So up here we have spring, then we have, let's see, this one's autumn, this one's winter, and this is summer. So you have those represented as well as kind of a wheel. So going back to the Fool. So one of the interesting things I noticed right away is the circle on top of the Fool's satchel. And I had to kind of think about what this circle here could be representing. On the one hand, Fool starts with number 0, so maybe it does reference that 0. Another idea I had is that this actually represents the monad symbol. And the monad symbol is usually a circle with a dot in the middle, and it represents that kind of first metaphysical being. So we're kind of getting this sense that the Fool is the first character that we're seeing in this deck. He is our introductory character as we go through the majors. And as it's shown without the dot, it shows that this symbol is somehow not complete yet. It's the mere potential of a metaphysical being. And indeed, the Fool card is about potential. He hasn't fallen off that cliff yet. His story has not begun. We are just at the cusp of that happening. Another thing you'll notice here is we have the sun and the moon. Possibly that could be referencing the sun, the kind of masculine aspects, moon, feminine aspects, and here he is right in between them. And then another interesting thing that you might notice is the snake here. And the snake, if you look at the magician card in a Rider-Waite deck will show a snake and the magician's using it as kind of like a belt, as a kind of Ouroboros. So maybe it's kind of a foreshadowing of what to come, foreshadowing the magician card, where here you actually have the snake again, but it has molted. So that was all of the kind of interesting symbolism I found in this card. So moving on to the magician here. So we just mentioned that snake that is molting, and it is molting too, and making the symbol of the infinity sign, which usually you see above the magician's head. So that's a bit different. Normally you see all the representations of the suits on his altar, and here you do as well. And also, kind of a side note, the sword is plunged into the stone, which kind of makes me think it's connecting with maybe that myth of King Arthur, which is really cool. And then here on his cloak, he again has the Ouroboros belt, and there's also a symbol of Mercury here on his cloak right there. And the magician is often associated with the god Mercury or Hermes. And he also has this kind of weird lightning bolt where the infinity symbol is usually seen. Maybe that's a reference to kind of bringing down the power of the heavens into him, which is kind of a part of what this card is about here. And another interesting symbol he is wearing the symbol of the Philosopher's Stone. And it has the circle and the triangle, and then another square, and then another circle in there, if you can see that. So the circle was representing the kind of realm of the divine. The square represents our material world, and that triangle, it's the in-between stage. So you can see that triangle is in between the square and the circle. So that kind of is the bridge between the mundane world and the spiritual world. And here, you know, the magician is an alchemist, and he, even in some decks like the Botticelli deck, is depicted as an actual alchemist working to create the Philosopher's Stone. So I really like how they included that in here. Also, bordering the altar here is a bunch of what looks to be unicursal hexagrams. And this is a symbol that can be drawn with one continuous line, and it's used by, I believe it might have been created by the Golden Dawn, and it was later used by Aleister Crowley in his tradition of Thelema. So those of you that are familiar with Thelema or the OTO, the Order of the Templar Orientis, might be familiar with this symbol as well, and it usually stands for the motto, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." And that again connects with the magician, because the magician does what he wants. He's not beholden to any specific societal structures or rules. So there is so much going on in this card. It just is fascinating here to look at all of these different symbols coming together. So moving on to our very unusual looking High Priestess. So here she has a crown, that triple goddess crown, the maiden, mother, and crone symbol on that crown. She has a stone kind of obsidian face. Maybe that's connect with how the High Priestess is associated with the mysteries. So maybe it's tying into that. You can't see her face. She is truly unknowable. And then we have a rune here. This is, I believe I'm probably pronouncing this wrong, the Pertho rune, which again also references the unknown or fate or prophecy. And then these 3 lines, I'm a bit unsure. Maybe it's referencing the I Ching. Here they're upright, here they're 90 degrees. And then also, if so, is it also connected to the hat that the magician is wearing up here? Let me know in the comments if you have an idea on what these 3 lines underneath the rune could be. So there's a baby here, which is a bit unusual. So maybe it's showing the Christian connection with the High Priestess. Usually the High Priestess in a Rider-Waite deck will have a Christian cross that she's wearing on her cloak. But here maybe instead of the cross, it's referencing the baby as kind of a baby Jesus and the High Priestess as a Mother Mary motif here. And indeed in art history, Mother Mary is always shown in a blue cloak or wearing blue. Or perhaps maybe this indeed is the Empress. The High Priestess has given birth to the Empress, which is why it is in fact green. So maybe it's another foreshadowing to the next card. We have a book of knowledge here, and then on the book you can see a couple symbols. Again, you can see that monad symbol that we talked about with the Fool, but it's also the symbol of the sun, so sacred masculine next to the Venus symbol for sacred feminine. And then you have the symbols of water and air, which is also my logo for Arcane Alchemy, which is fun. And then you have the moon symbol. And another thing you see is pomegranates on the cloak here, and pomegranates you've also seen a lot of other interpretations of the High Priestess, probably referring to her connection with the story of Persephone. Persephone being the one who, married to Hades, travels between the realm of the living and the underworld periodically throughout the years. So like the High Priestess, Persephone can travel between the 2 realms. So a lot going on, and again you have the classic black and white columns. Usually the columns have letters, a B and a J from the Temple of Solomon, but it's kind of cool they went with some runes this time, so that's kind of a fun change. So moving on to the Empress. So we actually have 2 columns behind her, and there's fabric between the columns. So again, that might be referencing back to the 2 columns and fabric of the High Priestess here. So it almost looks like it's in the same location, perhaps just a different time, especially a different time if that baby is in fact representing the Empress here. So we also have a rune here, this being a rune representing fertility and nurturing love and kind of a bounty connected to the harvest. And you do see a lot of harvest symbols here. And even too, the shield, it's actually in a heart shape. So again, connecting to that Venus symbol that you usually see associated with the Empress. And here on her dress, we get the pomegranates again. But while here the pomegranates might have referenced the High Priestess' ability to travel between the worlds of the living and the dead, perhaps with the Empress, because pomegranates are also, they're seeds, if you've ever eaten one, maybe it's connected more with that fertility concept associated with the Empress. So like the seeds of the womb, kind of a feeling there, and with that red womb-like color too. So maybe they're using the same symbol but a different meaning for this one. So at the top right here, let me see if you can see it. There we go. Top right, below that arch, I believe that is a Gnostic cross representing spirit and matter. Do correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. And then here her crown, the 12 stars there is 12 signs of the zodiac, perhaps. That's a common theme you see in different interpretations of the Empress. And then here, you know, I'm at a bit of a loss on this bull here. Perhaps it's an offering, just how in pagan cultures bulls would be offered at harvest time, especially because it's got like the flowers around it. So maybe this is another reference to the fertility of the earth, that harvest time idea that connects with the Empress. Though the stars, why 5? I'm not sure. So let me know if you have an idea here on what those 5 stars are on that Empress card. So for the Emperor, we have a very different interpretation of the Emperor than I usually see. Usually the Emperor does have kind of an orangey red background, and here you see that represented by the flames, and this card usually connected with the god Mars. So you do get that connection here with the flames as well. And then the grains of wheat, maybe that's again a reference to the Empress. These 2 cards are of course connected, as in mythology Venus and Mars were lovers too. So there is a strong connection, symbolic, using symbolism through the Emperor and the Empress. So one of the weirdest things you'll notice, he's got a deer head but a human chest. So, you know, maybe he's tying into that masculine energy, the sacred masculine, just like the Empress, the sacred feminine here. A bit of an unusual thing here. You do have the bulls again represented. So the bulls here too, you know, it again also ties to the Emperor's card, and maybe with the fact that it's a different animal head on what looks to be a human body, maybe that's even referencing a Minotaur story, perhaps. So perhaps that's what it's connecting to. And then we also have what looks to be a symbol above the head here, and I believe this is a Tibetan symbol that is connected with the idea of indestructibility and a thunderbolt, meaning force. So like a diamond and a thunderbolt symbol coming from Tibet. I could be wrong on that, so do please feel to correct me in the comments. Okay, so there is a lot going on in this card, and definitely I do love these unusual but very fitting interpretations of the Empress and the Emperor. So next, moving on to the Hierophant. When I saw this Hierophant, I knew I wanted to get this deck. It's just so dramatic. It's very unusual to see kind of such a violent Hierophant. But I really wanted to kind of dig in and figure out what's really going on with this card. So here you see these 2 figures, and they're kind of enslaved by the main Pope-like figure in the front. He's got a whip there. So maybe because this card is connected to cultural rules and traditions, here you see the 2 figures perhaps being enslaved by those rules and traditions, not being able to disobey and go their own way. Here you have kind of a classic Illuminati all-seeing eye in the background. And then the 2 bees. So maybe the bee is referring to the Boaz symbol, which is usually seen on the High Priestess card on the column, which is from the Temple of Solomon. The Boaz symbol representing bow, standing for in him, and Az meaning strength, so strength in him. So maybe this is referring to the strength inherent in this character, though I don't know why there's 2. So let me know if you have an idea about that. And here too, you have the green woman, and it is similar to our Empress. The fact that it's green and a moon feminine symbol, so maybe it's connecting to the Empress, and maybe the male figure is connecting to the Emperor, perhaps. So they're submissive, but yet she's still hiding the symbol of the moon. She hasn't given up her free spirit and her free will entirely. So I do really like this card, and it's a very sharp contrast from the previous image here. So next we have the Lovers card. And a very beautiful Lovers image here. Here we have another rune, this time representing love and forgiveness. And it looks like a traditional pagan hand fasting ceremony is going on with the use of the ribbons here. And we have over here an athame, a male symbol, and a chalice, a female symbol. Definitely connected to, you know, the female sex organs, those symbols right there. And then you have a rainbow, a bridge between the two worlds perhaps, and an apple. So you can see the apple over here. And an apple has a 5-pointed star when you open it and you see the seeds. And in traditional witchcraft, there were actually a lot of lore and spellcraft surrounding apples. And a lot of them used apples to divine and learn about who their future partner might be. So it's kind of neat they chose to include the apple here. And here you have red and blue, so classic masculine and feminine color here. And again, red, the red robe is what the magician wears, and the blue robe is what the High Priestess wears. So maybe there's a connection of those two coming together in the Lovers card. So next you have the Chariot, and there's not as much going on with the Chariot card here in terms of symbolism. You have a lotus flower, which is an image of rebirth, beauty, and purity as it blooms from like a kind of muddy water that it comes from, and this beautiful flower bursting forth from that kind of muddy atmosphere. We have 7 stars, as here we are number 7. And the chariot going across the sky definitely makes me think of the myth of Apollo, who rides his sun chariot across the world each day. So let me know if you see anything else in the Chariot card that I might have missed. So for strength here, again, we have a lot going on with this one. Here she and the lion are kind of wearing matching floral crowns, showing their connection here. And we have a lot of interesting stuff going on over here. So we have what looks to be an egg in fire, and light is coming out. And then you see we have 3 sets, maybe 4, of frogs and snakes being drawn to that light. And they're not only that, they are bringing sticks to fuel the fire. They are helping this fire with branches that they're bringing. And they're 2 different animals, and normally probably enemies, right? Because the snakes would eat the frogs. Just as here we have the woman and the lion normally don't work together as enemies, but here in fact they are working together to bring in that inner light, just as how she and the lion works together through their inner strength. So a really great one for this card. Okay, next we have the Hermit card here. And the Hermit here, he has a candle guiding him. The Hermit is usually shown with a lantern or light of some sort. And here he has an hourglass, which is actually probably a throwback to earlier interpretations of the Hermit that showed him more as a father time figure. And he has a bunch of keys here, and then 2 keys, interestingly, by his feet. So do you think he's maybe collecting the keys, like he collects knowledge as he is walking alone? Or does he kind of cast them aside as he unlocks hidden knowledge, kind of leaving a trail for others to follow? I'd love to hear your thoughts and ideas about what these 2 keys might represent. And finally, for this video, we have the Wheel of Fortune card. Again, this card's very bright and very different stylistically from the other cards here. We have our 4 seasons represented with their alchemical symbols right here. And we again have a triple moon symbol Right here we have a pentacle in the middle and what looks like a ship's wheel in the middle here, along with zodiac signs around the wheel. So you have black and white representations of duality here. And you have a couple different animals. Here you have what looks to be like a jackal. This is actually more likely a Set animal, which is referencing Seth, who was an opponent to Osiris in Egyptian mythology. And he kind of represented chaos to the order represented by Osiris. So it's that duality of chaos and order here. And Set is referencing, you know, the chaos of the wheel. We cannot predict our karma. We cannot predict our destiny. Sometimes the universe just throws things at you. And here the snake, the Apep snake, it's got APEP written on it. And this was the opponent to Ma'at, who was the god of light and truth. So here you have the opponent to light and truth, the kind of murky waters, the gray areas. Again, very much connected to the kind of chaos of the Set animal here. So really great representations for this card. And the blindfolded monkey, I'm a bit at a loss for this, so I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments. The one thing that does come to mind is, you know, when you always see those three monkeys, the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. So here, perhaps this monkey is the see no evil monkey. He is unable to see duality, evil or good. Again, he is a character that is more murky. It's not exactly black and white. So a very interesting figure here. I'd love to know your thoughts. So this is the last card I'll be going over for this video, and I do plan on doing the rest of the cards in the Major Arcana in a future video. And I would love to hear in the comments below which one was your favorite. So let me know, and let me know if you caught any symbolism that I left out during this video. So thanks so much, and I will talk to you later. Bye.